This year for our Thanksgiving meal, we're going to make cauliflower steaks with quinoa stuffing. To make the cauliflower steaks, you'll need 2 large heads of cauliflower, a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 limes, zested and juiced, 2 cloves of garlic, finely grated or minced, 1 teaspoon of honey or agave syrup, 2 tablespoons of paprika, 1 tablespoon of chipotle powder, and a 1/4 cup of finely chopped cilantro leaves, and some no-salt seasonings to taste. Let's get started. The first step in making our cauliflower steaks is to cut up our cauliflower into steaks. We washed our cauliflower, patted it dry, and the first thing we want to do is to remove as much of the leaves as possible without removing the stem. So now that we have most of our leaves trimmed off from the stem, we're going to cut the stem like so that we have a flat surface to work on. We'll just toss this aside. Now that we have a flat surface to work on, we're going to cut our cauliflower into at least 1 inch thick pieces. You are going to have some florets that are going to fall off to the side. That's okay. You could save those for another recipe. So we're just going to start off like this. And as you can see, we have some florets off to the side. That's fine. We can reserve those for another recipe. You usually get your nice thick steaks around the center of the cauliflower head. And here's a good cauliflower steak piece. You could always trim a little bit of the stem at the bottom. Just don't take away too much, otherwise it's going to fall apart. And then we're going to set this cauliflower steak aside. In a small bowl, add your lime juice, olive oil, whisk it together, and then we're going to add in our agave or honey, then our garlic, whisk this together, and set aside. In a separate bowl, we're going to add in our dry ingredients. We have our chipotle and our paprika, our lime zest, some freshly ground black pepper, some lemon pepper, and some flax seasoning. Then we're just going to mix this together and set aside. Now we're going to dress up our cauliflower steaks. First we're going to preheat your broiler to low heat. Then we're going to take your cauliflower steaks and lay them in a single layer on a baking sheet, like so. Now that we have our cauliflower steaks arranged in a single layer on a baking sheet, we're going to brush the top side of the cauliflower steak with the olive oil mixture, just like so. Okay, now that the tops of your cauliflower steaks are nice and coated, now we're going to sprinkle some of our dry seasoning on top. Alright, now that the tops of your cauliflower steaks are nice and seasoned, we're going to place this underneath our broiler over low heat for about 5 to 6 minutes. Now that we've taken our cauliflower out of the broiler, we're going to go ahead and flip them over. Now that we have your cauliflower flipped over, we're going to brush the side with some olive oil mixture. Again, we're just going to sprinkle some of our dry seasoning on top. Once you've seasoned your cauliflower for the last time, we're going to toss this in the broiler over low heat for 6 to 8 minutes until done to your desired texture.
To make the quinoa stuffing portion of our dinner, we're going to start with 1/4 cup of fresh parsley that's been finely minced, 3 or 4 cloves of garlic finely minced, 1 tablespoon of coconut oil that's been melted, 1 tablespoon of agave syrup, 1/4 cup of dried cranberries, 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme that has been finely minced, 1 bay leaf, 1/3 of a cup of chopped walnuts, 2 medium leeks that have been finely diced, 2 stalks of celery that have been finely diced, 1 medium butternut squash that has been peeled, seeded, and cut into 1/2-inch pieces, 3 ounces of fresh curly kale that we've washed and torn into bite-sized pieces, 3 cups of vegetable broth, 1½ cups of quinoa, some olive oil for sauteing vegetables, and then some no-salt seasonings to taste. So let's get moving. Alright, the first step in our stuffing is to go ahead and get your oven preheated to 400 degrees, and then we're going to roast our butternut squash. So we're going to add our butternut squash to a pan. We're using a 9x11 baking dish, and we're going to add our chopped walnuts as well. And to this we're going to mix in our coconut oil and our agave syrup. Now we have everything added. Just going to go ahead and stir this up. Try to make sure we get all our butternut squash coated. Okay, now we have all our butternut squash and walnuts all coated with the oil and agave. Now we're going to go ahead and cover this with some foil. And we're going to put this in our oven at 400 degrees. We're going to cook it covered for at least 15 minutes. And then we're going to remove the cover and cook it for an additional 20 minutes or until the squash gets browned and is tender.
While your butternut squash is roasting in the oven, we're going to go ahead and cook the quinoa according to the directions on the box. Instead of using water, we're going to use some veggie broth. And we're also going to add a bay leaf, and of course the quinoa. And give it a mix. Okay, once we have it mixed well, we're going to transfer this to a stove and cook according to the directions on the box. Once your quinoa has finished cooking and all the liquid has been absorbed, make sure to take out the bay leaf and toss it and set aside. Now that our squash has finished roasting and tender, we're going to start on sauteing our veggies. So in a large skillet, we added about a tablespoon of olive oil over medium heat. And then we're going to add our celery. And then we're going to saute this for about 2 to 3 minutes until they're tender. Okay, our celery has been sauteing for about a couple minutes. Now we're going to go ahead and add in our leeks. And we're going to go ahead and continue sauteing this for an additional 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, now that our celery and leeks have sauteed for a few more minutes, we're going to go ahead and add in our garlic. And we're going to go ahead and continue sauteing this for a minute more. Alright, about a minute has passed after we've added our garlic. It's become nice and fragrant. Now we're going to add in our kale. And before we add in our kale, I've reduced the heat to low heat. And you can do this in batches if you wish. Just going to give it a gentle mix and keep stirring until the kale becomes wilted. About 2 to 3 minutes have passed and the kale is wilted. We're going to take it off the heat. And we're going to transfer this to a small bowl.
Now that we have all the ingredients cooked up, we're ready to put our stuffing together. So in a very large bowl, we're going to go ahead and add the ingredients, starting with our quinoa. Next, we're going to add our butternut squash and walnuts that we've roasted in the oven. Next, we're going to add our kale and celery mixture. And then we're going to add in the remaining ingredients, our thyme and our parsley and our dried cranberries. And then we're going to add some no-salt seasonings to taste. This is Dash's lemon pepper, some fresh ground black pepper, and some flax seasoning. And then we're going to stir this all together. When you get it all mixed together, it should look something like this. Set aside.
Now that our cauliflower has finished cooking, it's time to plate. So we're going to take a piece of our cauliflower steak and plate it on our dish like so. And then we're going to take a spoonful of our quinoa stuffing and add it onto our plate. And then we're going to garnish with a little bit of parsley or cilantro. And there you have it. Cauliflower steaks with quinoa stuffing. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone!
We hope you enjoyed our video.
If you did, please subscribe. Or click on the Patreon link below. Or you can click on the videos from last week.
Bye!
Bye!